Excellent. Well, we will get underway. Thank you very much for joining us. We're very, very excited course offering or dual course offering to talk about tonight. One that has recently made its way onto the Mentor Education scope of offerings, and that's the Dual Diploma, the BSB50215 Diploma of Business and the BSB51918 Diploma of Leadership and Management. Joining us tonight, I have Danielle O'Neill and Iona McKinney. Danielle and Iona, welcome.
Hi, James. Thank you. Great to be here. Hi, Danielle.
Hello.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, let's get started. Danielle, I'm going to hand on over to you first and foremost to talk to us a little bit about who this course is for.
Yeah, absolutely, James. There's such a wide variety of people and individuals who this course can be suited to. So we've got experienced managers, but also those aspiring leaders, people that are looking to work as a team leader, senior manager, project officer, so anyone really in that senior or developing role. Those seeking to or already running and operating their own business, so the entrepreneurs of the world, people looking at small to medium-sized businesses. And it is designed for those who already have qualifications or those looking to break into it as well. So you can step straight into this qualification.
Excellent. Now, so I suppose really there is a wide variety of applications where that, I suppose that suite of business skills and knowledge, but then of course those focused on leadership and management work together. I mean, they really do complement each other. I mean, Iona, is there anything like, I suppose, that you'd like to add on that, particularly I suppose on the entrepreneurial side, which we're seeing a lot of that come through at the moment?
I think it's fair to say that for people that are really aspiring to those roles, but also, you know, people with that entrepreneurial aspiration, or people that are wanting to work in consultancy roles, this dual diploma actually is, if you like, almost a holistic course in many ways, because it not only takes into account all of that great people stuff with leadership and management and innovation, but it also takes into account the actual running of a business. So I think in a moment we'll actually start talking about what the course content is, but just as an introduction to the actual course content, the dual diploma actually provides both of those aspects of working in a business and running your own business, if you like, or actually leading highly skilled teams in a business setting, or maybe even providing advice on different aspects of business management as a consultancy, which is why we suggest that to people that, you know, they may have another diploma or say a certificate for in leadership and management, and by adding this extra dimension into their studies, they're able to actually expand their knowledge and the depth of skill, if you like, that they're able to take into those contexts. So from an entrepreneurial aspect, you know, they're not just everything is about people, of course, because we, you know, work with human capital every day, but it's also about business and the how-tos, how to produce reports and how to actually work with our customers and so on and so forth. So one of the great things about this dual qualification is that it actually prepares people to be able to go and actually undertake that in either their own workplace or other workplaces, or as a consultant, or even as a startup.
Okay, great. Now look, just before we move on, and Danielle, I'm just going to hand on back to you just to talk a little bit about, again, who the course is focused on, you know, and I suppose who it would apply to and who would benefit from it. I mean, you work with students day in and day out at all ends of the spectrum when it comes to work experience and what it is that they're being exposed to. I mean, how much advantage is there for those, I think, who are new to the industry? And then, of course, the advantage of then formalising those qualifications for those who have been in perhaps a leadership and management role for some period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those new to an industry, having no qualification and no experience can make it quite hard to step into roles. So there is that logistical aspect of having that on your resume, but there's also the skills that you will have to back that up. Even having the conversation in the interview and understanding the type of roles that you're going for and trying to get into or started working in is so important, and the skills that you can actually bring into the organisation that you decide to work for. So super important in there. For those already working in the role, regardless of how experienced students are, there's always something new to be learned. It's not even just formalising skills you already have. There's always something that's been updated or changed since you last studied, or something in the course that is in there that you wouldn't have known before. So I don't think there's anyone that's ever studied this course and said, I didn't learn a thing, I'm just formalising what I already knew. So there's always new aspects to be learned, new techniques when it comes to that leadership and management, and different points of the business that can be learned and understood by those with experience.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Now, Iona, talking a little bit about the overview and I suppose some of the outcomes of the course. If you could take us through that, that'd be great.
I guess one of the reasons why this course was developed was to really respond to what we're referring to as the changing world of work and an Industry 4.0. And we know that the world of work is changing. We know that change has accelerated greatly just in the last 6 months. And we know that workplaces are changing, and we also know that people are looking to develop their ability to work in those changing workplaces, as well as traditional workplaces as well. So there's a range of areas of focus in this course, which we've got listed here on the screen. So emotional intelligence is very, very important when we're working with teams and remote teams and ourselves as well. Again, it's about that different way of working when we've got, for example, 3 remote teams rather than just something we do as a project team. It's about a continuous improvement, because the world of work is changing and what we're doing in our workplaces is changing, and we need to keep abreast of that change. And that's always, and change is continuous. So it's about making change a positive event, and working with that continuously. Risk management, of course, it's a true area of focus for any organisation as they're going through processes of change, but with the changing world of work, and also existing businesses as well. So there's a number of organisations that undertake projects. They look at the risk involved with, sort of how those projects happen. So risk management is about that as well, as also part of continuous improvement. Workplace policy. We know that we've seen, again, I'll use our current market conditions and our changing workplaces and the requirements for those workplaces. It's about developing the policy to suit the conditions for the business or the organisation. And sustainability. Sustainability, of course, is something that we should incorporate in all of our operations on a day-to-day basis. So the outcomes, I suppose, from these areas of focus is that as we go out or we're already in a workplace, or we're working as a consultant, or we're moving up into those leadership and management and manager type roles or middle management in any organisation, that the course actually prepares us as part of these areas of focus for what we need to be doing on a day-to-day basis with our organisation or a new organisation or a new enterprise, and in such a way that we're actually working with, if you like, the most current approaches that we could possibly be utilising in those workplaces.
Great. Now, look, I think something here which is interesting that we actually haven't talked about it yet, but the outcomes of the course, that you do in fact pick up 2 qualifications, not just 1.
So as part of completing this course, students complete a Diploma of Business and a Diploma of Leadership and Management. So they actually complete 2 full qualifications. Excellent.
Now, there's obviously a reason why these 2 qualifications go together. I mean, I think, Danielle, you briefly touched on it earlier on, how it is that they complement each other. As we move into the course outline, perhaps, Iona, this is an opportunity for you to talk to us a little bit about why those 2 particular courses work so well together, and what some of the subjects are in a little bit more detail that we can expect students to go through in picking up both these qualifications.
The courses have actually been paired into a dual qualification because, as you said, they do complement each other. But what they do is they provide opportunities for developing deeper learning and deeper knowledge not just in terms of leading and managing staff and human capital and human capital management, and but they also provide the opportunity for those operational skills that we need as well. So, and the course also provides an opportunity for us to work with projects, because in every workplace at some point we're part of a project team, or we lead a project team. And especially as managers, we'll often have both small and large projects as ongoing continuous improvement initiatives, for example, strategic plans, operational planning. So it's incredibly important. And I look at the unit manage operational plan. So even just managing an operational plan, there is a number of different aspects of business operations that we look at. So we look at human resources and human capital management in operational planning. We look at intellectual property and management of intellectual property. We look at budgets, we look at marketing, we look at a whole range of things. So the course is actually constructed in such a way that in as much as business operations are concerned, students are introduced to as many aspects as possible of operations and productivity, as well as those really great future work skills with business analysis, emotional intelligence, and managing remote teams. So we take a comprehensive approach in this dual qualification to actually not just operating a business, but managing and leading teams in the business as well.
I think what's really interesting there is that reference as well to the emotional intelligence, but also the remote teams aspects. I mean, certainly leadership in the last few months has taken on a completely different construct to what we've seen in the past. So I think having that digital literacy and recognising the difference, in working remotely as opposed to face-to-face, and of course the implications on leadership is a very interesting take, and a skill that we're going to see demand just increase for, more and more and more. And not so much, things that are driven by environmental factors that we're experiencing at the moment, but another term that you used, of course, was human capital, and the talent pool now is worldwide, it's international, and geography is no longer a barrier. So being able to lead a team, irrespective of what time zone they're in, whereabouts they are in the world, and of course having the skills to communicate, but more importantly, lead and manage those people is just going to be absolutely paramount importance. And I dare say something that a lot of employers or any sort of startup will be looking for.
Very much so, James. We know that when we're working with remote teams, for example, that the traditional hierarchical structure of business, where you've got the boss and then everybody else, is given instructions and they undertake the instructions and then they report back that they've completed the task. We know that traditional hierarchical structure of any business isn't really effective when we're working with remote teams. We know that we need to introduce flat team structures. We know that we need to measure accountabilities in different ways, and we need to encourage input and encourage communication. And it's not just about business communication, it's also about creating a community and creating an environment where people trust and they believe that they can have input. So there is a whole range of things when we're working in our new workplaces that we have to take into account. And emotional intelligence really does fall into that, because when we're working with teams, often we're just as much under scrutiny as managers as our staff are, because we are working in a flat structure and we're all accountable to each other. So it's very, very different. And so we find that the focus on changing work environments and remote work environments and business analysis, how do we work out whether that remote team that's spread across 3 continents is really achieving the things that they need to be achieving? These are all some of the things that we look at in some of our units of study. And it's where units like lead and manage effective workplace relationships really come to the fore, because it's not just about creating a presentation anymore. It's about that ongoing relationship and that viewing people as capital, as something we invest in and we invest time in. We're actually on one of my favourite subjects at the moment, next to sustainability, because that's all part of our social responsibility. It's not just a social responsibility in terms of ethics of the wider world of working. It's also about our responsibility to ourselves and our organisations, but it's also about that internal culture. How do we look at culture? How do we develop an organisational culture? So all of these things actually come together, and so by creating a dual diploma qualification, we've actually brought all of these different aspects of the world of work at the moment, and as it was previously, and we're able to take that forward into our newer working environments.
Excellent. Now, look, we've just had a live question come through, Iona, so I'm going to stick with you if you don't mind. And it's about units, and I suppose any specific units or elements of learning that respond, say, to crisis management, in this case, COVID. Okay, so how would we go about putting together a management plan that would assist us in addressing, a pandemic or the changes that we've had to face with respect to remote working?
So we know that there is, so if attendees are in Australia at the moment, and especially in Victoria, we know that we've got a situation that we're managing. But we also know that as part of our work health and safety requirements, just as a basic requirement, we need to ensure that everyone is safe and that our working environment is as effective as it possibly could be, not just for the organisation, but for our employees. So one of the things that we look at in that aspect is a COVID safe plan. And I believe you and I, James, have been talking about this today. And there's a number of aspects to a COVID safe plan where we don't just talk about how we make our offices, that we're not there because we're all working remotely. So how do we make our home offices safe? And we also take into health and well-being, and that falls into our human capital and culture and well-being. And how do we ensure that we support our workmates and our staff, and that in our teams to maintain wellness, and how do we address mental health, and so on and so forth? What training can we provide? Are we just going to provide resilience training, or are we going to provide other training and other support services as well as our usual health and wellness programs? How do we manage home working environments? We need to include that in our COVID safe plan as well. So there's a range of things that we would look at. Methods of communication. What are our backup methods of communication? What about our contingency planning? So if all of a sudden, for example, if we have 4 team members in a team that is integral to our day-to-day operations, what happens if what's our contingency plan if something like that happens? So all of those things are actually taken up in one way or another in a number of units in the course. So we look at, workplace policies and sustainabilities and policies for sustainability. We also look at things like personal work priorities and professional development, because that awareness of health and well-being falls into that aspect of the course as well. Managing effective workplace relationships and team effectiveness, all of these things come into this. But sometimes we actually need to look at something that's outside everything else. And that's where our continuous improvement processes come in. As I said, I can talk about this subject for hours, James. It's actually one of my favourite topics. So it's really important that as we move through any course of study that we have true benefit from the course of study, and we understand that. So that's why in this course in particular as a dual diploma, we encourage not just those leadership and management skills, but that operational planning as well, because that also falls into, for example, as the example you used, developing your COVID safe plan.
Yeah, excellent. And look, I think probably one other unit worth drawing attention to is that, building and sustaining an innovative work environment. I mean, there is no playbook for, I think, what the world's faced recently. And, without that innovation and, being able to, as you said, think outside the square, come out with solutions, policies, processes so that the business individuals, human capital can effectively respond is something that needs to be kind of done on the fly, developed for the first time ever. So certainly value in that as well.
Oh, and developing micro-analysis skills. So not just looking at the macro, but looking at the micro as well. It's incredibly important that we can just look at events, and then we can bring a group of events together, and we can actually say to ourselves, well, look, we can innovate here. We can make a change. And there's a really good positive change, because innovation, of course, should be two things. It should be responsible, and it should, well, three, and practical, but it should always be positive. So right at the moment, for a lot of organisations, there is the opportunity to actually innovate in these ways, and it's an incredibly positive process. So to be able to do that, and to be able to go out there into the career market or jobs market, to be able to complete the course and work with our current employer to actually be able to develop the skills to respond to these things, is an incredible thing to be able to do out there at the moment, where there's a lot of places scratching their heads going, what do we do now? And that's very, very true.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, let's move on to and have a bit of a look at the industry, and I think some of the roles, a bit of an overview on what's available to people with these qualifications. Now, we've picked a really, I think, generic, simple one by way of the office manager, but this idea of business and leadership and management can extend to so many different roles in so many different industries. Talk to us about some of the areas where this would apply, and I think what people could expect to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Danielle, would you like to start responding?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, James, the job opportunities from this qualification are near endless. There's so many possibilities. But when you're looking at an office manager, as you said, just a generic job role that can come from this, you can be looking at the moment at remote work and utilising all those skills that we've just spoken about there. There's obviously, the management of teams is usually involved as well. So managing people and looking after that area. The job role itself is expected to have huge growth over the next 5 years. You can see on screen there, it's about 8.2%, which is quite a hefty job growth over the next 5 years. And looking at an average salary of 70K per year. So certainly a good position to be in, and one that you can get into with just that diploma level qualification without sort of going into further study initially, if that's what you want to be doing there as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. And Iona, from your experience, somebody taking on a leadership role, what are some of the, I suppose, the day-to-day activities that they could be involved in, some of the responsibilities that they may in fact take on?
Oh, James, how many hours have we got to talk?
Okay, we don't have hours, we have minutes. So
oh no, that's terrible. Limiting the amount of time I can talk about something, that's not fair. Look, across the day, in a leadership or a management role, you may be involved in individual conversations, you may be mentoring staff, you may actually be doing performance management, you may be developing a workforce plan. You may be looking at resourcing for projects and allocating staff to projects. You may actually be creating training programs or arranging training for specific staff. You may actually be involved in different types of meetings, so project meetings, strategy meetings, planning meetings, where you're looking at new and different changes. And innovation, and how can we make a positive change? We know we've got sort of a gap in our processes. How do we actually take that up? How do we make that process improvement happen? We may actually be liaising with others in industry as part of development groups and innovation groups. We may actually be working with our government departments and our regulators to ensure that what we're doing meets the required statutory standards. We may actually be undertaking a quality assurance process to meet the accreditation requirements for quality, and we may be talking about exporting. or importing. And we may actually be liaising with organisations such as Austrade or someone like that. So there's a whole range of things we might do, but it all comes back to our people and what the organisation does and how the organisation works on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, people and culture is very important. So something else that we might be looking at doing is looking at developing those health and wellness programs and at least, you know, having a touch point in all of the different areas of operations. So we're abreast of, as a leader of an organisation, excuse me, so we're actually abreast of every aspect of the operation. So there's a whole range of things that we do on any given day. Oh, and then there's reports. So we've always got to write reports. We might notice, everybody, I left the reporting till last. Yes, and then there's, of course, our reporting. And there's also our involvement in peer review and things like that. So there's a number of things that we do. And I would hope that we don't actually have to do all of those things on one day. So, but at any time over a month, we would at least do one or two of those things at any given time. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, look, certainly broad in its application, broad in the activities that you would do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. But I think a common theme, which I've picked up throughout, is that of people. You know, it really is working with and managing people and ensuring alignment with greater organisation. Now, I'm certainly mindful of time because it is an exciting topic and one that we could delve into for hours. Let's talk a little bit about the learning material itself. So leadership and management, how is it brought to life?
Okay, so there's a range of learning materials that students experience through our learning management system. So we have set reading, textbooks, workbooks. In this course, we also have academic articles that we look at. There's a number of videos, thought leader videos, for example, where we ask students to reflect and maybe respond, you know, to something in the video or undertake some activity. There is research tasks to actually go out and learn more about the topic, because self-exploration and exploration of information sources is something that we need to do as we move out into leadership and management roles and in operations roles in organisations. We need to be able to source information. Self-directed activities and self-directed research take up a whole range of things. So it could be responding to concepts that have been presented in our learning materials. It could be, again, watching a video, listening to an audio file. It could be case study responses. It could be management decision practice exercises. So one of the things that we know that people really value in learning is that when we're in roles where we need to make decisions, is to actually practice making decisions, because it is not an easy thing to learn how to do. How do we make that decision? You know, what makes a good decision and a bad decision? So we actually look at things like that and problem solving exercises as well. There are live online tutorials throughout this course for every unit with a real living, breathing tutor, not a recorded webinar. Students will actually see me in some of those tutorials, so I'm one of those living, breathing people. And then we also have discussion forums in a number of units of study as well. So there's a wide range of learning materials and opportunity for students to engage in their learning. And we try and make that as broad as possible, because no workplace is the same, no day is ever the same, and we need to be able to, again, like I said, you know, source information for ourselves. We need to do that in our roles every day. So we attempt to support students to develop not just the knowledge or the know-how, but also the ability to undertake different things that we would be expected to do in our day-to-day working life.
Excellent. Well, And again, I think very hands-on, very practical, and the sort of things that I think you could read one night and then take to work the next day. You know, I think that's really valuable.
Most definitely. The learning materials, so for example, the texts are all compatible with, so they're able to be read on a mobile phone, for example, and a tablet. As Danielle suggests, it's worthwhile for students to actually do their learning activities on a desktop or a laptop. That is mostly because of limitations with editors and so Word or whatever on smaller devices. But to be able to access the learning management system, that can be done from a mobile phone, reading and videos, audio files that are requirements for the self-directed learning activities, all of those are compatible with smaller devices.
Okay, great. Now look, on that, Danielle, I'm going to hand on over to you to talk to us a little bit about the online learning experience. I mean, what are some of the requirements that students have in order to engage with the learning management system, you know, and I think, what does the whole process look like?
As I only touched on there, you can utilise the learning management system on different devices. It's web-based. So if you start it on your desktop, you can pick up on it on your mobile, jump back onto your desktop. If you're going into the office, you can do some there and then some at home. So that's the beauty of it. Wherever you save it, you can jump back on another device. You will, as Iona mentioned as well, you will benefit from doing the assessments and the actual, that side of it on a desktop or a laptop where you have a bit of a bigger screen, keypad and mouse. But when it comes to the reading and all of those things, you can download it onto your mobile really easily, log in on your mobile and do it all there. What used to be done on public transport might now be read or listened to on a walk around the block just to get away from the desk. And then when you sit down, you can do your assessment back at the computer. Everything with the learning management system is in-house as well. So even if you're researching and you're directed through to another website via a link to do some research, you don't need to leave the learning management system to do so. It's all hosted in there. It's very user-friendly, and you can even see from the screenshots attached there, you've got your units down one side, the learning management system, the assessments contained in that. You've got your Let's Get Started module as well. It's really easy to use. You've got a click button link through to the student support if you need it to, or you can pick up the phone and we'll be really happy to talk you through how to use it if there was any hiccups as well. Okay,
great. And when we use the term web-based, I don't have to download any software or anything like that. It's just a web page.
Yeah, that's right. That's the best way to describe it. It's just a website that you jump onto, log in with your username and password, which we'll provide for you, and everything is there. So you can do that on any device. It's not something that you need to install or taking up space on your computer or anything like that.
Okay, great. Now, for everybody who's been hanging in there with us, thank you very much. We're going to get to the slide that we know all current and prospective students are very, very keen on learning about. And that, of course, is the assessments. What do I need to do to get these qualifications? Iona, handing on over to you.
Assessments. It looks like a scary list when we look at it on this screen. And really, James, one day we have to separate it out for everybody. So students will complete an assessment task for each unit of study, but those assessment tasks are usually made up of a number of different tasks. So some units, students will be asked to complete a multiple choice quiz and say do case study responses. In other units of study, students might be asked to complete a project, and a project might be made up of a number of other tasks. So there might be a plan to prepare, there might be a presentation to create, there might be a self-reflection exercise and a portfolio of documents to collect. So there is always a range of different assessment tasks, and assessments aren't meant to be hard. They're meant for students to be able to demonstrate to us that they've worked through the course content and they've developed an understanding, and they've attended, of course, the tutorials for deeper learning, and then they're able to actually move through the assessment tasks. So the course actually prepares students to complete the assessments. There may be some outside research tasks at diploma level that students are asked to go and investigate the new world of work and industry 4.0, or what digital platforms can we use for meetings and presentations? There's a hint there for anybody. We're in Zoom right now. They're always achievable tasks, and if students have moved through the course and completed the self-directed learning activities that are there, they will be adequately prepared to complete any assessment task.
Okay, great. Now, course duration, Danielle, and what? So how long would it take me to complete the course? And what sort of support can I expect along the way?
So it's a 12 to 18 month course, is what we would anticipate. Students really will work through this in their own time. Some are going to finish slightly quicker than the 12 months, others will take the full 18 months, and either way is perfectly fine. Time committed to study is going to be the biggest impacting factor, and of course how we learn as individuals will determine the finish time as well. But students really are in control of how quickly or slowly they work through the course. If you want it done faster, dedicate the hours to getting it done. We're of course here to help if students do get stuck at all. We've got the student support team and the wonderful suite of trainers. So Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, pick up the phone and give us a call, or send through an email. Sometimes it is best to send through an email with screenshots or questions, and then they can give you a call. So yeah, we're certainly here to help if needed.
Okay, great. Now, I've taken the liberty of putting together a series of frequently asked questions that often come through from our viewers and prospective students. Danielle, if you'd be kind enough to talk to some of them for us, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So short answer to can I get government funding is we don't offer government funding. It is all fee for service, so students pay for their course. We do have some really good discounts at the moment, so much so that students actually tell us it's more affordable to do it this way than to go into government funding or any kind of loan or debt for study. So we do, have really good pricing available, and it's definitely worthwhile to have a chat with us. Which leads into that very next question of the payment plan and options. They certainly are available. We've got some flexibility there to suit students and the individual needs. So have a chat with us about what pricing option is going to work for you. But they are all certainly very affordable. When can I start? The beauty of online learning is you get started when you're ready. It doesn't take us too long at all to actually finalise an enrolment and provide access to the course. So that's done on the day or the next business day of your enrolment, and you can get started whenever you're ready. You don't need to wait around for any intake days. It's all really up to you and when you want to get your qualification.
Okay, great. Now, the next one, I understand that we have self-directed, and then of course we have virtual tutorials. So we have different study options available. So just to provide a little bit of context I think around that question, what are the difference between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the course content, the platform you've seen, the duration and the qualifications you'll receive, there is no difference. The difference in the two study options is that once a week, you can opt into the virtual tutorials, which Aaron touched on earlier. It is a real person trainer sitting here in the session using the same technology we are today, and the trainer will be going through the course material. So they discuss that in length. You've got question and answer with the trainers as well. And you also get recordings of those sessions. So if you can't attend live or you want to refresh your memory, you can actually watch them back at a later date or when it best suits you. So that's really what we recommend, although there are those students who have a lot of experience and have conducted online learning recently that will opt out of those and just purely go for the online learning without the tutorials.
Okay, great. And nationally recognised, of course?
It certainly is. It's something that we, working with it day to day, forget how special and important that is, but they definitely are the latest training package and nationally recognised. That's both qualifications there.
Great. Prerequisites?
There are no formal prerequisites to either of these qualifications, so you can enter. We recommend being over 18, but if you're not, have a chat with us. We recommend a Year 12 high school education, but if not, have a chat with us. There are no formal qualifications needed to enter the course.
Okay, great. And we touched on that, how long does it take to finish, didn't we?
We did, yeah. So it's a maximum sort of 12 to 18 months, but totally self-paced.
Okay, great, excellent. Now, that brings us, I think, really almost to the end of tonight's presentation, but I do have one question that's come in, and that's about pathway opportunities. So once I finish my Diploma of Leadership and Management and Business, where can I go to from there? Iona, you're probably the best to handle that.
Okay, there's a number of options that we have available for students in as much as pathways are concerned. So students are able to continue on into the Advanced Diploma of Business and look at the and dive into business operations and explore them in greater depth and with introduction to business planning and a number of other operations considerations. Students are also able to enter the Advanced Diploma of Management in Human Resources for those students that are wanting to continue on and further develop their opportunities in human resources or human capital management. Students also have the opportunity of applying for entry to a number of undergraduate courses, and the Dual Diploma of Business and Leadership and Management will afford them a 6-month credit with a number of our pathway institutions for entry into business and commerce courses with a number of providers. And I'd suggest for students that are interested that they could have a look at the Pathways page on our website at mentor.edu.au.
Okay, great. And just to confirm for those who are tuning in, when we talk about undergraduate, what we're talking about really is bachelor level degrees at university.
That's correct.
Excellent.
Very much so.
Okay, good stuff. Well, look, if there's no more questions, then that brings us to the end of tonight's student information session. So thank you very much for joining us, Danielle and Iona.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you very much for everybody else who's tuned in. Danielle, if I wanted more information on the Dual Diploma of Leadership and Management and, of course, business, where would I go? Yeah,
just get in touch on whatever works for you. So we've got the website that Iona mentioned there, mentor.edu.au. You can give us a call, so that's 1300 306 146. We've got the Facebook page and we've got a live chat function on the website as well, so you can get in touch with whatever works.
Excellent. So just give you a call and ask for Danielle.
Absolutely. One of our many other education advisors.
Okay, fantastic. Once again, thank you very much, everybody, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon. All the best.
Thank you.